I am just in a place where I know my portfolio is not strong enough. There's definitely a lot of added stress.
Perspective wise, I think it's amateur work.
I tend to put things off.
You're not there to defend your work.
That's been a little bit frustrating.
This is my portfolio. This is what I got. This is some of the best work I have. Can you please hire me?
Time management is my number one worst skill.
They didn't teach us that in school for internships. How is that going for you? Are you getting any responses?
All rejections so far. My name is Alex Venti. I'm a junior in industrial design at Arizona State University, and this is Portfolio Pinup.
Why did you pick industrial design to be the career you wanted to pursue?
I started off in computer science because I had experience in game design in high school. I liked the creative side of it, the problem-solving aspect of it. I was doing the back end, so coding for it was actually for Roblox games, so it was pretty basic, but it was really fun to do. And got into computer science, found the math side of it to be a little bit too limiting. And I just wanted to express myself more creatively. And so I had an aunt that was doing packaging design, and she was like, industrial design seems like it'd be a perfect fit for you. I say, check out the program, do it for a year. If you don't like it, switch. I ended up loving it, stayed with it, and I'm going to my senior year right now.
Why did you end up picking Arizona to get your college degree?
I applied to UC Irvine, actually, and I believe actually UC Riverside. And I was originally going to go into game design, but that just became not feasible. And Arizona State was offering me scholarships. I did consider a lot of California schools. I think the main one that I was banking on was UC Irvine. I didn't end up getting into their game design program. So that's kind of when I made the decision to settle with ASU. I love the campus. I liked my class structure, even though I ended up switching out of computer science.
Do you remember how much you paid as far as tuition to go to ASU?
I'm in-state, so mine is substantially less than a lot of my friends who are out of state. I would say per year, somewhere around 16 to 18 grand, maybe a little bit less. We'll say 16 grand per year. Mm-hmm. And that's before scholarships. My parents are helping me quite a bit with the rest of my tuition, so that isn't a huge stress. And then I'm also, right now I'm living at home, moving out within the next 2 weeks or so. Industrial design doesn't really require that much in terms of buying books. And it's not like, STEM where it's like you need an online textbook that costs $300. Most of the cost of the books or programs or anything was honestly for electives. Most of the stuff, ASU provides us with Adobe Suite, it provides us with Keyshot, with a SolidWorks license. So the additional fees besides tuition are pretty minimal.
During the time I was going to school, it was around $6.5K per semester. So double that would be, 12, 13K a year. So it sounds about right. I think going to state school is a good route, especially if that's the school that provides a decent reputation with industrial design. And so you would be able to get the education you need and not spend a lot of money, because sometimes it's really difficult to land a job in industrial design. And even if you do, it cannot be well paying. And so if you end up spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on your education and you're making a 50K salary, it's just not, it doesn't really balance each other out. Talking about money though, how much do you expect to get paid after you graduate, land your first job as industrial designer?
First job, I'm not, aiming anywhere high. For me, it's more of what is the ceiling within wherever I end up. So I personally want to start in consultancy, which I know does get frowned upon a lot of the times in design, but I'm hoping to start at least 60 to 70 grand a year would be my sweet spot. And then, 80 grand would be, there's no choice. I'm moving wherever to join that firm.
Where are you getting those numbers? Are you hearing it from kind of like other people that are industrial designers? Where is that number coming from?
I have two friends. One of them has an internship for the summer, and the other has interviewed with a few big places. I think he's interviewed with Teague and a few other larger spots. And I remember we had a conversation about it, and he was saying the average that he saw, at least in California, for a lot of these places that were more centered around West Coast California, Seattle, he was seeing 80 grand. So I think in my mind, I just kind of took that as okay, probably more 60 to 70 grand, with 80 grand being on the higher end of, if you're starting in a place like Teague. But if I'm working for a smaller firm, I wouldn't be expecting those kinds of numbers.
How is the industrial design market around your area? I imagine you're probably maybe at this point looking for internships and stuff like that. Are there a lot of opportunity as far as ID around Arizona?
It's not one of the strongest states for ID, to be completely honest. There are some firms here. My friend is interning with a consultancy that's in Scottsdale, Arizona. And that's one of the ones that pulls directly from ASU. Besides them, off the top of my head, I can only think of like two or three other big places that are specifically hiring designers. But there are a lot of like drafter, like positions for drafters, stuff like that. So not where I'd want to stay, but if I'm, really feeling like I want to stay in Arizona.
SoCal it's not the best one, but it's definitely up there. There's a good amount of jobs as far as ID goes around here. A lot of consultancies. Of course, up north in the Bay Area, for sure, there's a ton. Not only is there a lot, but there's like really nice high caliber type companies that if you actually get your foot in the door in those companies, you're doing really well. Washington, I saw a couple of them there too. I think that's also really great. I personally considered moving out there myself, but I don't know. I have a house now, so it kind of makes it hard. But a person like you who maybe doesn't own a house yet and, haven't sunk deep roots yet, like the world is your oyster and you could, go anywhere you want. Mm-hmm. Another one's New York. I know a lot of my fellow classmates, they moved over into New York and found industrial design jobs. Or similar like industrial design jobs, still within the creative field, but not necessarily industrial design. So tell me about the school. So how many years is it?
For my program, it's a 4-year program. There are options for masters, but it's really obviously not a major that requires you to get a master's degree to really succeed.
Mm-hmm. So what are they teaching you the first and second year?
First year is almost completely sketching with a little bit of like hand modeling. So using like very rudimentary like foam core. I mean, we did one project where we made a lamp that we used like wooden dowels and foam core and then like a basic lighting system. And then I had a 3D printer at the time, so I did a little bit. They kind of were like, if you can 3D print and do basic models, do that. But it was primarily sketching, basic CAD. I think we took a graphic design class as well, something more graphic for like illustrations and presentations, that type of thing. Second year studios, when we really started to learn, that's when we got our Keyshot license activated. So I want to say that was either first or second semester. I want to say second semester of our sophomore year is when we took a modeling and Keyshot class. So it was kind of, you learned how to use SolidWorks, and then at the same time, you were doing renders.
SolidWorks is the staple industrial design 3D program. And Keyshot, also the same industrial design 3D program. It seems like everybody I ask this question, they always give me the same answers. So that's still good to know because that's a program that I'm still using. And so I'm glad that I'm not outdated quite yet. Third year, that's what you're in now, right? You're a junior? Mm-hmm. What are you doing now in third year?
Right now, we are in a studio class. We're doing a project on, it's a prosthetics. So we're working with Tec de Monterrey. It's a Mexican university, and we're working with them to create a recovery experience for people who have had to undergo amputations or who are having trouble getting used to prosthetics. So this one is much more, less like hands-on modeling, that sort of thing, and much more focused on user experience. What do they need? How can we deliver that? It doesn't even necessarily need to be a physical product itself.
Tell me about the professors. Are they all kind of working professionals that are teaching part-time?
I've loved like almost every professor I've had. We've had a few that I think like everyone in the class could agree weren't as qualified as they should have been. There's definitely a variety of people. Like we have people in furniture design, auto design, consumer goods, or consumer electronics, and then branding. And so I think we have a really good spread.
It sounds like you did send out a couple of applications for internships. How is that going for you? Or are you getting any responses?
I've gotten responses, obviously all rejections so far, but I have been shooting pretty high. The issue is with a lot of local firms and stuff like that I've been applying to, or remote positions, it's actually hard to get responses from them at all. And I don't think there's a lot of good like cross communication between, are they checking Handshake? Are they checking where these applications are going? So that's been a little bit frustrating. I haven't gone out of my way to put in to just like rapid fire applications because I am just in a place where I know my portfolio is not strong enough to be standing on its own without me being there to be like, hey, nice to meet you. This is what I like. This is who I am.
Why do you think that is? Why do you feel that your portfolio isn't maybe quite up to par?
I think presentation is a huge part of it. I think I have a lot of good content, but my main issues are going to be really the design thinking in the early stages. That's really the issue I run into is I can have the, good sketches, good models, good renders, but if my base idea, when it comes to more of the basic things like interviewing users, figuring out exactly what they need, figuring out a solid, succinct idea that can't just be like quickly dismissed is definitely something I still struggle with. So I think that is really at the heart of a lot of issues with my portfolio. And then I just say presentation on top of that.
Is this you just personally judging yourself, or could it also be because you're comparing your portfolio to some of the classmates?
Both. I try to be pretty critical of myself, not in a sort of way to bring myself down, but I don't like to, if I guess, to answer the question more simply, there is a level of comparison to people in my class. I've seen some pretty good portfolios. I've seen portfolios that are at my level or maybe a little bit below. So definitely I'm happy with where mine is at in terms of my class from what I've seen. But in terms of like the professional field, especially because Arizona State is not a renowned school for industrial design. So my criteria for what my class looks like in terms of portfolios is lower than what I'm going to see at some of these big universities. The students who are coming out of there and what they're putting into their portfolios.
How about CAD or rendering? How do you feel your skills are with those items?
Rendering, I've had a decent amount of experience with like Keyshot and Blender and kind of understanding like lighting and materials and all that. So I feel like I'm definitely on a good track there. I was pretty happy with my last project with the renders. I think that was definitely the strong point of my project. CAD, I'm definitely getting there. The one skill that I'm very lacking in, that is my goal for the summer to really teach myself, is surfacing, because surfacing is not something I have a lot of experience with.
Are they teaching you how to use these surfacing tools in SolidWorks?
We had a very brief chapter in our modeling class that was all about surfacing, but it was 2 assignments and that was 2 years ago. We learned those skills, but we weren't given enough opportunity to constantly practice them to be able to lock them in. So it's like I knew it at the moment, but because I didn't really use it after that, I've lost a lot of those skills.
During my school, when I went there, they taught us Photoshop, but they never really taught us how to render products with Photoshop. They just taught you the tools. They did a little bit of graphics design stuff, but it wasn't really like, hey, render out this power drill, Even with surfacing, they taught us for, I think, 1 or 2 classes. I think it's really just 1. And you do about, maybe 3 projects, and then that's it. Obviously, the first couple are going to be horrible because you're just learning surfacing, and it's just going to look like crap. And then you maybe get the hang of it your 3rd project, and then that's it. You don't have any more. And so
exactly.
I think with school, it's a good place for you to meet people, get started, get your education, of course, get your degree. But with design, you really have to love it. Turn down a couple hangouts with your friends, maybe not watch that movie or show, and just watch a couple YouTube videos of some guy showing how to surface, this computer mouse.
I don't think that could be more true. I mean, it really is that the self-starter, self-motivated kind of attitude you have to have towards it. And I mean, especially this semester for me, I feel like that's really hit me, where I'm like, this isn't just checking boxes and then boom, I have a job. it really is like you said, putting aside things. I haven't played a single video game this entire semester, primarily because of that. Because like it's just I really have to be putting the most in. So that's definitely been a valuable and hard lesson this semester.
For that exact reason, that's why I hate when people say, "Oh yeah, they didn't teach us that in school." It's like they're not going to teach you everything in school. You're just gonna have to figure it out yourself. And so that kind of line always bugs me sometimes. But with school, what kind of computer are you using to make all these projects? Did you build out a really heavy duty, powerful gaming computer that you're using for your design work?
Yeah, so I use two devices. I have my Surface Windows Surface Laptop Studio. I think I said that right. Not a great laptop. I do not recommend. It's been giving me problems. But for rendering, doing all the heavy lifting, I have my custom built PC. I'm looking at it right now, and that thing has been a blessing. I can't imagine. I almost sold it before I switched to design, and then I'm so glad I didn't because I'm running a 3060 right now. It's a little bit behind. It's behind the times, but it with my current setup works great for what I need it for. So I'm glad I have both. It's nice to have that mobility and then also have my big setup at home.
Do you recommend having somebody have a powerful computer that they built out themselves, or you think that they can get away with like a $800 laptop?
Either go all in with a laptop or I don't think you need to really be spending the most on a PC. So when I say I built mine, I bought basically a pre-built for like a little over, I want to say it was like 1,500. And then I stripped a lot of things out of it and probably spent another 500-600. So, I mean, obviously that is a decent financial commitment. And I think there is a limit to like, I'm sure you could buy a $800 HP laptop and have it function for SolidWorks, Photoshop, Illustrator. When it comes to that rendering, the rendering is really what does it for me. And honestly, balancing multiple, like having SolidWorks and then 3 different Illustrator windows open. My computer that I bought this laptop 2 years ago, and it was, I think it was probably 1,300. This cannot handle that. It can barely handle that. So I can't imagine something in a lower like price caliber would be able to either.
What kind of student are you? Were you the kind that always got your work done, design came easy for you, or was there a lot of late nighters, staying up multiple nights to complete a project?
Yeah, I have to say time management is my number one worst skill, or number one skill that must be improved. Let's put it that way. And I have a tendency to, I always get things done, but there's definitely a lot of added stress from a lack of scheduling and just really using the time that I have efficiently. I tend to put things off. I've had ADHD pretty severely since I was a kid. Dealing with that in college is definitely its own challenge. How that usually plays out is it doesn't really affect, like I'm able to get things done, I'm able to manage things, but it's more of just the stress of not planning things out well enough to get them done in time. I'm taking 22 credits this semester. So I have those plus 2 jobs. And so that's been a lot.
Parents helping you out, living at home, ID career not being too expensive at the moment. Why do you need to have a job right now? Especially too.
So for me, it's more of that leisure money. Like I could potentially not be working as much as I do, but I just enjoy the freedom of, we're going out to lunch between classes. I don't have to worry about, spending money on lunch. I just, because I'm working my 2 jobs on the side, so I can just, it is just the freedom part of it, being able to travel and do the things that I want to do.
I gotcha. So let's transition to your portfolio. What do you expect to get out of this feedback?
Maybe things that I've been blind to. I've had quite a few other designers review my portfolio, and I've got some very insightful notes and things that I kind of maybe knew, but it took someone else to say it. I guess I don't know how the best way to put this, but I'd rather have my ego be bruised a little bit and improve from it and figure out what I need to do more of, rather than just someone tell me, hey, this looks great. It's like, okay, well, I know there's things I can improve on. Like, is my design thinking, where can I improve my design thinking? And what are those core competencies that I need to improve on?
I see a watch. furniture piece. It kind of looks like a chair. Not exactly sure if it's a chair. Maybe it's like an art backboard type of deal. I'm not really sure. So 4 different portfolio pieces. I think that's a good number. Anywhere from 2 to 4 is okay. Some of these things don't look as interesting. The only interesting one is this smartwatch. Nice presentation. Love the name. Devo. Bugatti Devo is my favorite car. As far as design goes, I really see what you're saying about lacking the skills of surfacing. Everything really looks straight extrusion. Everything kind of looks like a block. Even if you don't know how to use surfacing, I think that you could still somehow be able to add some sort of curvature to this. I think what makes it not as successful is that it just looks a little too slim. Proportion-wise, it's too skinny. Having a little bit of extra body on the side here, making it a little thicker. I think these brackets here that which the band are held onto is a little too chunky looking as well. But render, I think it's good. I like the 2 different angles that you picked here and how they kind of interloop with each other. Looks like there's some kind of a separation here. I really think that you need to get better when it comes to design. Not just like getting better at SolidWorks. It's not getting better at rendering. I think for you, what you need to get better at is trying to make a product look more realistic. The only way to really do that is to look at real products out there on the market, watch them like a movie, spend 30 minutes just looking at an Apple Watch and measuring it out with calipers. Notice how thick they make things. Notice how they make the sidewall and the curvature. In the finesse of a bracket that the band is holding on to. There's a lot of very little nuances that I really don't see in this design here, which to me is a major blind spot that I think you have. And so just paying attention to some really nice real manufactured products on the market there and just study them. See how they solve certain problems, how they create certain surfaces, and then just simply try to apply that to your own design. How this band here wraps around the bar too, it looks like it was made in a computer program, but I don't really exactly understand how it could detach. Maybe you don't want it to detach, but I think that it should. Figuring out how that could detach. There's like this dead space that's in the middle here, so it looks like a bar runs across, and then you decided to have the band attached to one end and the other end, but then the middle you kind of just forgot about. I think what would look nicer is if this middle part was raised to be kind of flush with the band, so it just kind of has like this smooth look to it. Hard to exactly pick my words right, but it looks kind of piecey. It looks kind of just different elements that are kind of put together. So having a nice flow, having things talk to each other, having things look like they mean like they were designed all together, I think would be very important. I think this is a decent shot. Lighting looks really good. There's something about the hairy arms though that just puts the image off. Hairy arms are real, people have them, but for some reason when you do see it on a picture and you're trying to make the picture look nice, it always just looks better when the hand looks nice and smooth. And so if you can do that, retake some of these pictures, or when you move forward developing a future portfolio, just really consider that. Maybe get a hand model or something like that. I think that would really help. And don't always feel like you need to have some sort of a fancy colored gradient background or at all. Feel free to just plop it on some plain gray background or just a plain black background. That usually does the trick. It comes off as simple. People focus more on the design and it doesn't look like you're trying too hard. Yeah, because just something like this, the icon, it just looks very blocky. It doesn't look really that great. It's very clear. It's very simple. Use not a lot of words and a couple icons. Okay. Nice and simple, nice and clear, whatever's on the market, mood board. I think visually, this image here is very heavy. So what I usually like to do is when the picture is just too dark, too heavy, has that visual weight to it, I just like to gray it out just a little bit, just lower the opacity or add some kind of filter on top of it to really lighten up some of these blacks so that the whole page just looks more balanced. Because right now, a lot of these on the left here are very light, they're airy, but then the ones on the right here are very heavy. And so just having, just everything look nice and balanced by using the technique I brought up would improve something like this. Sketches, okay, so nice sketches. I think these are good. Very form driven. I see the 3D contour lines draw through. Those are all there, nice and bold, white background, everything pops, well laid out. So this is really nice. I think elliptical wise, the perspective of this one is very off. Circles in perspective, the ellipse on the far one is bigger than the one that's closer to us. Perspective wise, I think this shows that it's amateur work. Somebody who is really good at sketching, these are the number one things that they just never allow themselves to do. So just don't let yourself do stuff like that. Make sure your perspective is on point. These are nice, very clear. They do just look a little bit too boxy. Everything just looks too geometric. I think the perspective on this one here, you really nailed it. This one is good. These pictures are really nice. Top view, straight on view, nice and clean, white background. I think what would make this even nicer is I would probably lower the saturation of this image here. It doesn't have to be completely zero saturation, but the white here is a little bit pink, and then it gets a little bit cooler up here, and the shadow is here. So if you lower the saturation, it kind of like remove some of that stuff, and it just makes it look a little cleaner. So right now I see more white up at the top than I do at the bottom. So if it can just be a little more centered, I think that would also add to the improvement of this. Yeah, like this one is good. Centering is good. Discoloration looks pretty even, but I think I would also apply the same technique, saturation technique on this. For lines, what I usually don't like when you have call outs and then the lines are just kind of all over the place. They're at all different angles. What you can do is just have a line go out and then down to there. Same thing with this one, go out and then up to that. And then this one, just have it go straight out. You could have it have a line with a little circle at the end, that, or the opposite. So a line with a circle at the end. And the circle kind of just exactly pointing to what you're talking about with the call out. Having these lines go all the way in every different direction, it just makes it look a little sloppy. And also the font that you picked, too heavy. Pick a lighter kind of font, something that's a little thinner. Din is always a good one. Helvetica is always a good one. You know, Century Gothic, something just a little more clean, thin. These images are good. Same kind of feedback with a hairy arm, though. I think with a nice, just sleek arm. What you could really do too is have less arm and just show a little bit more of the watch, taking up more of the space. Photoshop, where you mask off your arm and then just fade it off, you know, add a little bit of a lighter opacity to the arm itself so that you'd see it's there, you know it's there, but it's not so prominent. It's not full on opacity, and so it really highlights your design better. Yep, same goes with this one. Increase the brightness of this image, I think would be improved. Final one, see, so I think you did it here. You have the horizontal straight lines, and so this looks a lot cleaner than imagine if it was like at a diagonal, on all of them were at different angles. So just something like this is great. What I was getting at with just trying to step up your form design is, right now what I'm seeing is just this box that you added fillets to. You did an extrusion with, added a chamfer, added a little extrusion for the screen, a little pop out, you know, extrusion for this bar here, extrude across. So it's a lot of extrusions, a lot of very flat surfaces. You know, a lot of these things, it could really be very simple to make. A designer that has been, you know, professionally doing it for a couple years, they can make something like this in like 30 minutes. So if you're saying that this is my portfolio, this is what I got, this is some of the best work I have, can you please hire me? You don't need to use surfacing at your level, but I would use some lofts. I think lofts are great. Variable fillets also can help with form and trying to make something look a little bit softer and not too geometric. Okay, this image is not very great. It looks like straight up infomercial. So this is more of an explanation shot, which is fine. I know that your professor probably told you that, you know, you need to have like pages where you tell the whole story, how the product works, you thought it through, and all of those stuffs are necessary. But the number one thing that you really need to lead with when you are a designer is first the execution of the actual product. That's the number one thing you need to lead with, is the actual execution of the product. The product doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be this product that does this feature, that does that thing that nobody's ever seen before, that requires a lot of pages like this, an explanation to talk about what it is, to figure out what you're actually looking at. It can be as simple as a computer mouse or a shoe, where these items People just know it when they see it. They just know what the product is. The number one thing is just, what is your design? How did you actually design that simple product? How did you design that watch? What makes your watch unique? Why does it look different and special over another person's watch? And so it's all about the execution of the design, the forms, the shapes, the color, the material, the renderings, the presentation of your actual design. Okay, top view, some close-up views. You have some nice CMF there. I can see some speckle. It looks like you thought about materials there. I can see blue lighting, which shows that you're trying to get it a little bit fancy with the render and the light colors. Okay, finish it off. All right, cool. So I think this is the most successful one. If I was looking at your portfolio behind the scenes without anybody looking, that would probably be the only one I would pay the most attention to. Then I would look at this one, scroll through it real quick. I think that's a pretty decent shot. Wood is a hard one to render because, in Keyshot, you just have that wood material, you just apply it on, and then you apply it on all the different pieces, and there's just never that depth to it. And so it takes a lot of skill to render wood. You almost need to download special textures that have really deep kind of grain to them, and then so that the texture really shows through, because right now I do kind of see that there's texture, but it's very light, and so it kind of just everything looks like a very single color, and it makes the picture look a little bit boring. It makes a render not as powerful as it can be. I think what would benefit from this too is just the silhouette of the person and how they're using it. Because right now this is an unconventional design for a table or a desk. And so I'm actually kind of unsure how this thing even works. So if you have a silhouette of the person actually using it just here, they can kind of get a better sense of your what you're going for with this design. Shots like this I think are just super successful. Clean, nice, white background with a shadow on the ground. Nothing too fancy, no color, no gradient, just something simple just like this. And have a couple ones like this, because I think this one looks just very pleasing. It really shows off your design well, and there's not a lot of distractions that takes away from it. Presentation, horrible. This is really, really bad. Just straight up infomercial. This picture is not very good. So what it is, it just looks like a picture with some explanation, okay? So what you want to do is go on to Behance, look to see how other designers are trying to share the same kind of content. A picture of, whatever you're trying to fix and how they actually do the wording, okay? And then just, if it looks really great, then try to just apply what they've done onto yours. There's just something about using pictures that have strong borders to them, like these two top left ones, this one right here, but then you mix it up with ones that have a white background. Sometimes what I do is I just either add a light black stroke around all of the photos with a white background, or I bring it into Photoshop and make the background slightly gray, like a 5-10% gray, so you could kind of still see the border around it. And so with this gap that you have here, you would see a consistent gap all the way through. Sketches, super nice sketches. I think sketching how you present them is very good. I think the last one was good. I think this one is good too. Yeah, just like this one, I think the perspective is just a little bit weird. It looks a little bit too extreme. Especially right here in the far end. So I would just, and the lines look very wiggly. So just stuff like that, pay attention to make sure that they just look nice and clean. Very, very nice. Like these ones. These ones look great. And then you jump into building it with some dimensions. These two shots here, one on the left, one on the right, and just blow them up, show the whole thing. I would shrink this down. I mean, I understand why you're showing it. You're showing kind of like the dimensions and stuff, but nobody, the person that's going to view this really doesn't care how many feet this is. They really don't. So you want to show that it's there, but you don't want to make it so big to where it just takes up the whole page and it's just something to scroll through. So you can just shrink it down, put it in the corner just to show that it's there. And then I think these ones here are a little bit more towards the design aspect, and that's what you want to lead with. Cool, very nice. Shows that you thought about how it's all put together, showing instructions. This page actually looks really cool. Oh, look, you did it here. Straight lines with a circle. Perfect. I think what makes this, though, not successful is the lines. You also want to make them light. You don't want to have these lines here. They're just lines that are pointing to a part that is to the call out, right? So you don't want to have it overbearing, have it visually heavy. Just make it nice, light opacity, very thin, small stroke. What I would do, I would make this not an open circle, because I think it adds to that visual complexity too, which is not something you want to draw attention to. So I'll just make that filled in, and then also make the circle just a little bit smaller, just to see that it's there, but you barely notice. Right now, I think these circles are just a little bit too big. The stroke is a little bit too thick. The font that you picked is just not really pleasing to look at, and it also is very heavy and takes up the visual weight over your actual design, especially I think since you made it red. I think rendering wood is really difficult, and the reason why this render isn't professional looking, it immediately comes off to me as amateur work. It's student work. It's somebody who hasn't been designing for a long time, or it's just somebody who's really rushing. Okay, so that's what this looks like to me, and the reason is because it just looks very computery. When you render something out of Keyshot, typically it looks like it just looks too plain. There's not a lot of texture to it. When you see really good renders, like go on Behance, check out some of those industrial design portfolios. When you really take a deep dive into the renders, you could see that they actually added noise and texture, and I think that's what it does, is it kind of softens the render, and it adds that visual texture to it, and it just makes it overall more interesting looking and not as computery looking. Right now, a lot of these just look like, a 1990s kind of a render animation type of a thing, where it just looks too smooth, just like there's no highlight to it too. So what I can see is that it's like this line here, maybe you added a fillet, but right now it literally just looks like a straight wall up and a straight wall over. Normally things like this, they do have a little bit of a fillet with a highlight that runs across, and if you can't capture that in Keyshot, what I usually do is I just do the highlight in Photoshop. I use a pen tool, go all the way around, add a white stroke, and then lower the opacity to where you could kind of see it. And so just little things like that, you really want to take into Photoshop, really finesse and fine tune all these little details to really make sure these renders pop. The CAD work has to be nice for the render to be nice, and the presentation is nice, the angle that you picked is nice, and white, nice, clean background, just like what you have here. Just make sure that these images that really sell your design, is the best you could possibly do. And have a couple of them. Just like what you have here, it looks like an exploded view. Cool. Right. Model. I see that you cropped it out of the white background, which helps. Font is really bad. Placement is really bad. 2 different elements of text, maybe just move some of this over here. I would change these dashes to actual circles if you really want to have bullet points. You don't really have to have them though, just have the words. Some of the cropping that you did, I can see how spotty it is, and clean that line up, clean all of these kind of weird spots here. Maybe just use the magic wand tool, and did your best and try to delete it from the background, but really spend your time to clean some of these really jaggedy lines. So yeah, moving a shot like this up towards the top, I think would be good, so that the person can immediately know what this product is all about. Silhouette, I would make the girl just a silhouette. We don't really need to see the details, her bright red shirt. As long as we know it's a student, it's a young student, that's all we need to know. So, make her a silhouette. We don't need to actually see the girl herself. I think that you're right. This portfolio is definitely not up to par to be hired on. Maybe as an intern, but even that, I kind of have my reservations for that. I think if you had all 4 portfolio pieces be to the quality of the watch, I think that would drastically help. What I usually do is out of an S tier, A tier, B, C, D, and F, I really would give this a solid D. It's not horrible, but it also is not great. I know that you are still a junior. You're not a senior yet. You're still in school. You're still learning. You can never really give yourself excuses. You always have to try to be the best you can possibly be. And so hopefully my feedback will improve your next portfolio piece. That was my portfolio pinup critique for you. What did you think?
It was a lot of, it was some things that I've already gotten specifically for like those pieces. It was definitely beneficial to hear. Like I said, you know, obviously it's not easy being like hearing, oh, you giving it a D, but it's what, it is what I need to hear. It is what I need to hear. And I'm glad I kind of know where to go from this. Like what areas I need to improve. I think really what stuck with me, the main thing was the model complexity, because I know that's been something, that's why I was saying the main focus of my summer is going to be learning surfacing, learning how to really make it look like products instead of just, extrusion, loft, or, flat on the edges. So
yeah.
yeah,
So
no, I think it was beneficial.
I think what kind of got me to make it to the next level is when I thought about how hard it is to actually make something with your hands. I don't know if you've ever shaped anything with foam or just try to finish a 3D print, but it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of sanding, primer, sanding, painting. That's all manual labor that takes hours, even days to do. And so when I think about that, I think about all the effort it actually takes to actually make something. That's essentially what you're doing, but in CAD, in SolidWorks. So you kind of want to spend, how long would it take you to sand a watch down to make it nice and smooth? It would take forever. It would take hours. But when you do it, when you do it in SolidWorks and you're building it in SolidWorks, you do an extrusion, you feel like you're done. You know what I'm saying? But really, like, spend that time to be like, maybe I can make the fillets a little bit bigger, and it wraps around, and there's a variable fillet, and I could break the pieces up into multiple pieces to add that visual interest, and also thinking about manufacturing, how the pieces come together, adding screws, adding exposed screws, maybe adding a rubber pad here and there. I don't know. There's just a lot of things that you can do to add that visual detail and interest, and take your time to build that 3D model, because eventually when you build that really great detailed 3D model, it is easily translated to a really great render. Yo designers, hope you enjoyed that episode of Portfolio Pinup. I want to keep this going, so if you want to be able to be on the next episode of Portfolio Pinup, get feedback from me, go ahead and shoot me an email. The link should be down below in the description. I'd really love to hear from you, so have your portfolio ready and we could figure out the details from there. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.